on the face of it, if you were trying to simplify things, it's a PIR, but there's so much more, and there's different technology going on to allow it to do what it does. So what is the difference between thePixa and a conventional PIR detector?
Well, I suppose fundamentally is, as you said, it's a contrast sensor as opposed to an infrared detector, an infrared presence or motion detector. So it's using a different base technology. So it uses a very low resolution picture to all intents and purposes of the area that it's looking at, and it uses that. So it compares picture to the next picture to the next picture constantly. So any changes in those areas, it will then signal up as movement or heat mapping, so it can pick up the heat mapping as well. So it's definitely moved away. It's a completely different technology than the PIR, classic PIR, that we've been producing for many years, and it's moving into that area of a contrast sensor.
So it's using a camera, essentially a very low-res camera, to take a picture of the area and then compare that to the last picture it took and respond to what's going on. So what can you do with that? Are there different zones that it picks up, and how versatile can you be with the sensing in there?
Well, that's the really clever thing with it, is that you can split that area down into 6 zones. The actual picture itself, you can see that it's sort of squared off, almost like a graph paper. And you can accurately define the areas that you want, up to 6 zones within the detection area. And that allows you to then set in each of those zones different reactions that you want. So you could split it down, say, across an office, specific desk spaces. So it's very, very easy to set up, and it's very, very easy to, say, accurately define. We all know with the old infrared sensors, you can use the shielding across the sensor eye and things, but we also all know that it's not exactly, it's not precise in any way, shape or form. So this brings that level of accuracy, really, really defines it.
Right. And as well as the zones, is it differentiating between one person in a space and 2 people in a space and 5 people in a space? Can it actually count people essentially? Yeah,
because it picks up the motion, and then it's also heat mapping as well. So it picks up that heat signature for each person that's in that zone. Within the capture area within that zone. So it can count people, and you can parameter it to set up to count a certain person walking through, or a certain amount of people walking through that area. So it's very easy to define, what you want to do in those areas.
With a device like this that's got an inbuilt camera, how much of a security issue is that? What does the picture get broadcast anywhere else, or how does it deal with that?
No, it stays absolutely within the device itself. The device is only connected with 230 volt, but with the KNX bus, so that you're not taking it out onto the IP network or anything else like that. All the images stay within the device, and then the actual image itself is very, very low resolution. And Theben have made a really big effort. So we've got that GDPR compliant. So even when you actually see the pictures themselves that you can lift out from your phone, you still can't make out, features or people, specific people within that. You can see that there's a body, a moving body, but far from that, no. It's secure in both the where the information is stored and where the information is acted upon, and also with what that information is.
Okay, so when you see the picture on your phone, this is the app that allows you to configure the zoning and the configuration of the device. So
it's an app download, and then you've got a Bluetooth connection from your phone to the actual device itself. It is a KNX device, and you set the general parameters via the KNX device, but you set up your zones via the app on your phone, and that you can then define where those zones are, and the various, say, the temperatures, so you can rationalize the temperatures within those zones and the temperature measurement as well.
Great. So the initial configuration of the device in a KNX project obviously gets done by an integrator as part of the KNX project and installation for a building as a whole. But the actual configuration of the zoning can be done via apps. So if the thePixa was used in an office environment, perhaps where the layout changed, the office was let to a different company and they completely reconfigured, then it's just a matter of going in on an app to reconfigure.
Yeah, which means that for the operator, that local operator, if they've got the skills with this, which they should have, it's a simple app, and you don't need a little bit of a little bit of training, a little bit of visualization on it, so that their FM team can make those changes without having to call in a specialist integrator.
The applications seem huge for this device. The fact that it can distinguish quite precise zones and count the number of bodies moving in and out of these zones. So things, I mean, the obvious thing would be lighting control in a space, and very localized lighting control for energy efficiency and practicality. But then I guess you can bring into that heating control from the same device, or HVAC.
Yeah, of course. You're looking at HVAC control, lighting control, as you say, because you're measuring lux, but also you're measuring temperature in those zones as well. So you can specify heating control quite accurately within those zones. So that, I suppose the classic environment would be the office environment. So to pick out desks, measuring light on those desks, measuring the temperatures and the activity within those desk areas. It means that lighting control can be, really, really well defined.
And I guess in this sort of COVID era that we're in at the moment, being able to manage ventilation in response to the number of people in a space would be very practical. And it can be doing all these things at once. One device doing all these things at once, I presume.
One device, and at the moment when we're controlling, say, like ventilation within a room, say a meeting room, it's a reactive ventilation. It's a reactive action. Because it will react to that rise in carbon monoxide in a room from the amount of people that are in there. But of course, with the thePixa, you can count how many people that come into the room. So you can then define that ventilation to start acting when a certain number of people are within the room, without having to wait until that, a particular threshold is passed and it's gone beyond that. So it becomes much more a proactive device as opposed to just reacting to a downgrading of the situation.
In an assisted living situation, it could be used for welfare monitoring, perhaps, where you could be checking how much somebody's moving around a room, how often they go over to the kitchen, or to go to switch on the kettle, even whether they're moving around their property, all sorts of things like that, and integrate that as well as doing lots of other stuff in the house as a multifunction device.
Yeah, absolutely, and you do it without having to put cameras in the space as well, which is something that's really important. People don't want to be filmed with what they're doing, but certainly in an assisted living situation, that level of knowledge that you need to sort of take out, that level of information, is slightly higher than just turning lights on when you walk into a room, or something as simple, which is what a classic detector, you put a detector in place for. And if you've got it in a room, covering one room, and you've got automatic doors, you can set the zones by the doors so that those doors will act when someone comes into that zone, which you just couldn't do with a standard PIR, a single PIR.
No, absolutely. So in that scenario, for instance, a wheelchair user with a single function switch or trigger on the wheelchair could then roll toward a door, press that single function trigger, and the correct door would open, because thePixa would say, all right, somebody in front of that door.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So you said before that it's a KNX device.
Yeah.
So it has to be a device in part of a KNX infrastructure in a building that's been equipped to work for KNX. But I guess that's a huge bonus in itself, because it can be linked in with so much more in a KNX installation.
Well, yeah, the KNX universe is 500 manufacturers, 8,000 products. You're going to always find that product that you need, and the thePixa ticks so many of those boxes, and the requirements for sensing and for detection, movement and presence detection, and of course within the KNX application installation itself, that's when you want to be looking at, you need to be looking at getting an integrator in right at the beginning of your project to speak to them and get the right installation that does everything that you need it to do, not just part of it, not just one element within a building, but that whole building.
Mm-hmm. So KNX as a standard is established worldwide, but where are we at in the UK, would you say, with the numbers of integrators that are actually available to do stuff in the UK?
Yeah, plenty of integrators and partners available across the UK. Off the top of my head, I think it's just under 1,000 potential integrators across the UK. So you'll always find someone that you need, and they will vary as well. So they're not all individuals. There are companies that will specialise in potentially in commercial applications or installations, residential. And the key thing is finding those, going along and finding that integrator that you want to find. So we're a little bit behind the rest of continental Europe on our use of KNX, but it's certainly, KNX has been around for 30 years, and it shows, the level of control, the level of automation that, it's unrivaled. From whether it be bringing in AV or doing assisted living, all the way through to plant control, HVAC, heating, lighting, everything that you need.
It's great that it's such a growing industry in the UK as well. That should you have a KNX integrated building designed by, say, Function Control, for argument's sake, and 10 years down the line, Function Control have decided that they're actually going to be an ice cream manufacturer and they're not doing KNX anymore. You're not left with a building that's unmaintainable and can no longer be adapted and added to, because Function Control aren't there. There are all these hundreds and hundreds of other integrators who you can
absolutely
get in contact with, and who can take your project and move it on, bring it up to date with the advances that come over the years. So your KNX infrastructure remains constant.
That's the beauty of KNX. It's so forwards and backwards compatible. The original installations from 30 years ago are still perfectly adaptable to brand new KNX products that are coming onto the market today, such as the thePixa. You could fit a thePixa into a KNX installation that's 30 years old without any question, without any problems. That element of risk management from a developer, you reduce that. It's one of those things that you can just completely knock out of the equation, that you're not going to be left with an installation that in 10 years' time, all the hardware and the infrastructure is completely outdated. Yeah, if you look at a KNX installation from 15 or 20 years ago, you may want to update the switches because styles have changed. And, you may not, say 10 years ago we were using LCD switch panels, but now we want OLED and we want touch screens and we want, all of those things. Well, that is, as you say, that is just not an issue with a KNX installation. Yeah. Easily updatable and guaranteed to work.
It's a really powerful point, isn't it? That if you had a building, an office, say, that was a KNX installation from 15, 20 years ago, you could go into that space now, add thePixa devices, configure them to do all this work for you. You could have building management that's accessible from an app on a phone or an iPad, things that didn't even exist 20 years ago.
There's nothing else that really touches on that can have that level, from sort of field level, management level, supervisory level, across the whole building and across the whole topology of buildings as well, from a single house, like my own house, all the way up to, well, as we know, sort of Terminal 5 or the British Library, you know, to have that level of scalability and accessibility. Yeah, that's the KNX universe. That's what it's about.
So as a scenario, say say somebody went for a KNX installation based around Theben hardware, mostly with a mix of bits and bobs, but some thePixa devices in there. And then Theben, 10 years down the line, decided that they'd moved away from KNX. They were no longer making KNX devices or supporting KNX devices. Would that leave the building owner high and dry with a KNX installation that they could no longer develop or update?
No, absolutely not. We're not going to go anywhere. Look, we've been, no, where is it? Sorry, no, there. We've been around for 100 years, and I'm sure we'll be around for another 100 years. But no, to validate the question, you know, this happens. Manufacturers change. You know, sadly, we do lose manufacturers. It's a nature of the world. But even so, that hardware, if it needs to be replaced, if you couldn't get that Theben product for whatever reason, then you can replace that with any KNX product. Every single KNX product is wholly and 100% interchangeable and compatible with every other single KNX product. So you're never ever going to be left with a proprietary piece of hardware that is not supported and just doesn't work, and you're left with changing potentially an entire installation, which can be really, really costly, as opposed to changing maybe one actuator or you know one single device. Is
it still a product that has features that are still to be sort of developed and teased out of it a little bit further? It seems like there's so much it can potentially do.
There's always more functionality that we'll be looking at and bring to the product range. I think that's the beauty of the modern KNX devices, is that by hybridizing between KNX, ETS, and the Bluetooth and the app, it means that we've got different areas at which we can bring in additional functionality, whether that's via the app or whether that's via sort of firmware updates via ETS and things. So there's always a sort of like additional levels now, which is good.
You can spin off from that into so many different different applications, and I'm sure more will come. And
assisted living is one of those areas where there's a lot of reinvention almost going on. You sort of see sort of devices coming to the fore and devices being looked at, where you're thinking, you know, certainly with us within the KNX world, we're thinking, well, actually, we've got a majority of this already. We can do a majority of this already. What it needs to do is this section needs to be slightly redeveloped, as opposed to, you know, reinventing the wheel at every single opportunity. Mm-hmm. We've got that level of functionality, and we've got that the robustness and the proven technology. It's already available. It's already there, and it's already linked to a massive world of building automation. You know, it's not something that you've then got to try and shoehorn into another area. So it's
People just need to discover KNX, and then
that's the one. Yeah,
all our problems are solved.
yeah, absolutely.